Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Claire Van Blaricum. I'm the Voter Service Co-Chair for the League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara, and I will be the moderator for tonight's forum. The League of Women Voters of Santa Barbara is sponsoring tonight's forum for the candidates for Santa Barbara County Supervisor, Second District, along with our co-sponsor, the Santa Barbara Goleta Valley branch of AAUW, the American Association of University Women. We hope this forum will inform you, the voters, of the candidates' views on issues of interest to you. Note that the League does not support nor oppose any candidate or political party. Thank you for attending. Thank you to the Goleta Union School District for the use of this facility. Thanks to Silvia Uribe of Transil-Pro, who will be providing simultaneous translation from English to Spanish. Headphones are available upon request. Thank you also to TV Santa Barbara, who will be recording the forum tonight, and the video will be available later for viewing in both English and Spanish on the Santa Barbara League's YouTube channel, which can be accessed through our website, LWVSantaBarbara.org. Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that we are gathered on unceded Chumash land. We recognize the value of the Chumash, who have been the original stewards of this region for thousands of years. We celebrate their unbroken legacy and ancestral knowledge and their relationship to Hutash, Mother Earth. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place their home. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. We welcome the two candidates for the office of Second District Supervisor, Laura Capps and Elijah Mack. Thank you both for agreeing to participate in this forum. Here's how the forum will work. We use the traditional League of Women Voters process and ground rules, which both candidates have agreed to follow. To maintain civility and the issue-oriented nature of our forum, we do not allow candidates to make negative comments about other candidates' character or qualifications, but rather we ask them to address their own qualifications and vision for office and their views on issues facing the county and the Second District. First, each candidate will make a brief opening statement of up to 4 minutes. Then I will ask them questions from a list developed by our voter service team, giving each candidate a maximum of 2 minutes to answer. We will alternate the order of responses. The candidates will answer as many questions as possible within the time available. Candidates, please note that we have plenty of questions, and it is not unwelcome to respond briefly or even to agree with your opponent. I think we're ready to get started. Candidates, it's time for your opening statements. Going alphabetically, Ms. Capps, will you begin, please, with your opening statement of 4 minutes?
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters, to AAUW for hosting tonight's forum, and for your ongoing commitment to civic engagement and public service. And thanks to all of you for showing up. It's wonderful. And to our local media, you really do keep our democracy healthy. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Elijah for running. It takes courage to step forward, and our voters are definitely better served by having a choice. I'm running for re-election because at a time when national politics feels very chaotic, divisive, and exhausting, I believe in something simple. Local government can deliver. It can solve problems. It can improve people's lives. And our county is doing exactly that. This work is very personal to me. This is my community through and through. I was born in Cottage and lived very close to here at Sussex Court. My dad taught at UCSB. My mom was a public school nurse. I grew up with values of service, community, faith, and responsibility. My siblings and I played sports. We learned the values of teamwork, of working hard, and giving back. I attended our public schools, went to UC Berkeley, later the London School of Economics, and started my career in Washington, first in the White House, then the United States Senate, and later in national nonprofits. but I always knew I wanted to return to Santa Barbara to raise my family here. And right now, my son just surpassed me in height, and he's at Dos Pueblos at football practice. I served 6 years on the Santa Barbara School Board, and these schools shaped me. This community shaped me, and it's really an honor to be able to give back. And here's 4 reasons why I'm running for a second term. First, to keep building the affordable housing we need. Second, to keep leading on climate change. Third, keep improving public safety and supporting our most vulnerable. Fourth, keep fighting for immigrant community in the face of inhumane treatment by our federal government. This isn't just aspirational. We are doing this. We are proving it with results. We are tackling our housing crisis with real projects that improve the quality of life. We are turning underused county land into housing for working families with hundreds of units on track. And at the same time, we're protecting 36 acres of Mora Mesa from development. We've also taken bold and historic action on climate, banning new onshore oil and development, which will improve our environment, health, and actually save us money in the long run. We're doubling solar on county buildings, saving taxpayers $60 million. That's what climate leadership looks like when it's grounded in fiscal common sense. And in Isla Vista, too many young, tragic lives have been cut short, 14. And so I took aggressive, bold action and passed an 8-point plan to make those bluffs safer. We can always do better, and I certainly, with all my years of experience, know how to push. Yet at a time when our country and our national politics makes people feel powerless when they turn on that news, here in Santa Barbara County, we are showing something different, that government can be compassionate, it can be effective, and it can be accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mack?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this opportunity together for both us candidates here to speak. It means a lot for our local voters to actually meet their candidates face to face, hear what they have to say, and hear them present and defend their positions on the spot. And so, as you know, my name is Elijah Mack. I'm a local volunteerist, a spiritual educator, and an activist with years of experience working with several American political parties. And in about a week and a half, I'll be graduating from university, having paid for my education out of pocket. So I'm neither a career politician or some random kid with absolutely no experience trying to step into this office here. Now, in this election, I am running not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, but as a localist. My goals when elected are simple. I seek to radically foster local business and forge a more self-sufficient regional economy. I want to maintain our historic community traditions and festivities, preserve our natural environment, ensure that locals can afford to remain locals, and minimize how deeply the county needs to dig into your wallets. My concerns tonight, and my concerns when elected, are not with abstract ideologies or party lines or Washington, D.C. issues. I want to deal with the issues of our community for what they are and work with you to find ideal solutions. Right here in Santa Barbara County, we're watching businesses shutter and multi-generational locals be pushed out. I'm the last individual in my friend group growing up who has been able to remain to live in Santa Barbara. And this issue is especially pertinent in South County. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for our county's issues. But for one thing, regulations, taxes, fees, and subjective criteria for permissions we pile on everyday business people make it seemingly impossible to open or run a business or develop housing units. This pushes developers, for example, towards only 2 options: working with subsidized low-income housing or luxury projects, neither of which are priced for or give real preference to local doctors, nurses, law enforcement, teachers, and entrepreneurs who actually keep our community running. We need someone on our Board of Supervisors who will seek to aggressively clear this kind of bureaucratic underbrush. Now, of course, here today, I understand that all these matters are political, and I don't take anything personally or hold any personal grudges against anyone. But I am a candidate running against an incumbent, so naturally I have some concerns about my opponent's policies. You see, this may just be me, but until I stepped into the race, I have never heard my opponent talk about financial oversight, cutting red tape, etc. She also postures herself as a champion of housing affordability and pressed hard on this once I came into the race. But when she's talking about affordable housing, like many politicians in our area, she means almost entirely subsidized low-income housing. Worse yet, our county, and CAPS included, have walked us into taxpayer-funded legal battles with hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, in part over performative county policies attempting to control oil operations on federal waters. These are legal battles we cannot win, especially under the current administration, and legal battles that will waste your money that could have been invested into our communities, put towards meaningful conservation projects and environmental hazard preparedness, or simply left in your pockets. You see, my friends and neighbors who support CAPS simply know her as someone who shares their views on national politics and votes the way they do, which is fine and dandy. But my friends and neighbors who don't support her are ready and able to list off to me a myriad of ways in which Laura Capps and the board have made their lives harder. And they also see how Laura Capps only moved into this district after losing to Doss Williams, and they're suspicious of what she's up to overall. It is my confident opinion, based on my research and my conversations with pertinent individuals, that perhaps one of Laura Capps's main goals here is holding on to this office to build a base for a future run for Congress once Salud Carbajal retires. And she was born to two very respectable local figures, and she has all the connections to make a political ascendancy like that viable. But I believe that my opponent's continued residency in our local government is going to come at the expense of the state of our county. In light of these issues I have raised today, and the many issues that my neighbors bring to my attention seemingly every day.
Time.
Thank you.
What do you see as the biggest problem facing the county, and what do you propose that the Board of Supervisors do about it?
Yes. Absolutely. So I think one of the issues that immediately comes to mind is the lack of viable housing for multi-generational locals in the working and middle class. Now, our county has the ability to offer a number of incentives conditionally to developers that seek to build housing that prioritizes locals. And if need be, we can also issue, selection demands to ensure that locals get the first choice in our housing. Now, policies like those I have suggested historically, including incentives like regulatory flexibility, tax cuts, fee diminishing, etc., have had a great success in other areas of the U.S., including multiple municipalities in Florida, the city of Austin, Texas, the city of San Jose, California, and areas of Los Angeles. And so I believe the solution to the issue is to A, cut the needless subjective criterion for permission to develop in the area. We need to diminish fees and regulations that affect development, and we define incentives for locals first working in middle class housing, and if necessary, we need to adjust our demands for housing that's constructed to increase working in middle class housing. Those are my suggestions.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, same question, please.
Well, I agree with Elijah that affordable housing, and I appreciate that none of your friend group can stay here in Santa Barbara County. It's absolutely far too expensive. In fact, it's it's the sixth most expensive county in the country. Mm-hmm. And when you look at affordability, housing nationwide is the biggest factor of affordability. So we have to tackle the affordability crisis, and we are. We're building thousands of new affordable units, and they are going up all around us. I can point them all out. But the one solution that I am most proud of, because I'm the one pushing it and championing it, is turning underutilized government land, which has been sitting there for a long time, state, federal, but the one I have some control over is county. We've identified 6,000 acres of underutilized land, and we're working now to turn that into affordable workforce housing to the tune of 100 of units that right now are in the works to be affordable workforce housing. The first project will be on Carrillo, downtown Santa Barbara, about 100 affordable units. I'm very proud of what we're doing. In my mind, government just can't talk about the affordability crisis. We have to put our own skin in the game. This is affecting our people. It's affecting every single issue. It's affecting the fact that too many people, in fact, 15,000 people commute into Santa Barbara every day. That means they're sitting on our freeway, contributing to climate change. That means their families are more chaotic. They're trying to figure out how they're going to get their kid to a doctor's appointment because they commute 45 minutes a day. Affordable housing is at the crux of pretty much every single challenge that we face, because wages have not kept up with our housing prices here. And government has a responsibility. And I don't just talk about that. Since day one as county supervisor, I've not only been supporting the funds and supporting it, I've actually been bringing an innovative idea to life and we're doing it. I'm proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2, we will begin with Ms. Capps. What is the one issue within the Second District specifically that requires the most immediate attention, and what would be your plan to deal with it?
Well, I mean, I just spoke about housing. I would say that it is housing, but so if I can continue on that track, we do have a ton of new housing coming to Goleta, so if I can expand on that, because in our current housing plan that was mandated by the state, Goleta is getting the most of it. So it is a double-edged sword, because while we do need a lot of new housing, and the state has recognized that, and the state is pushing every single county and pushing every single city, too much of it is being concentrated in Goleta, which is why I voted against the overall plan that came down prior to me being supervisor. But it was set in stone, and so what I've been doing is just working as hard as I can to make sure that it's as balanced as possible. So a lot of the development that's being planned right around here, we did reduce the density. And what I'm very proud of is that I was able to increase the affordability percentage so that it isn't just market rate. It isn't just luxury. It is going to be 30%, 35% affordable. That's what we need. And when I say affordable, it's an old kind of frame to think this is low-income subsidized housing. This is housing for teachers, the kind of people that work in these buildings every day. That's what we're talking about, affordable housing. Most of the people that work in the county that devote themselves to public service, they need affordable housing. They make $100,000. You can't live, you can barely have a house here on $100,000. I fully understand that. I'm trying to build workforce housing, housing that people can afford. So again, they're not like a third of our county employees that live outside the county because they can't afford to live in the county that they serve. So it's affecting Goleta, and we have to be really smart. I'm so proud to have the support of the Goleta City Council because the impacts are here.
Thank you. Mr. Mack, same question.
Yes, so like Laura, I had to pause for a moment after that question because a lot of the issues our county faces or the Second District faces apply to the county as a whole. So I'd like to as well talk about housing a little bit more. So I too support trying to use certain underutilized lands in this area to develop working class housing. Now I personally don't necessarily trust the county to currently ensure that these will be truly working class units. So I'd like to be in there in the office to try to help that process along. Now, also, I'd like to state that I'd kind of like to describe myself as a classical urbanist, which is a term in architecture and urban design that you might have heard before. It's a little bit niche. But essentially, my view is that I like to see developments and plans that are human, that incorporate mixed forms of housing, that incorporate traditional styles of housing, that incorporate room for local business spaces, that are in some areas dense enough to prevent sprawl, but also allow for family homes and other developments. Essentially trying to use the government, the United States' systems of these heavily planned communities actually for good, to try to recreate the organic pre-war urban design. And so when it comes to how my sort of vision for what housing and development will look like in Santa Barbara County, I want to see development that looks like traditionally styled, whether it's Spanish colonial style housing or what have you, traditional courtyard apartments, bungalows, things of that nature, elegant new communities, row homes, townhomes that work well for individuals across the income spectrum and recreate healthy community environments with room for business space and things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, number 3, we will start with Mr. Mack. Is Santa Barbara County adequately prepared for future emergencies such as fires, floods, or earthquakes? And if not, what should be done?
Yeah. So in certain key regards, I do believe our county is on the right track with some of the developments we've made in Montecito for preventing mudslides and things of that nature from causing too much havoc. I would like to certainly work with and continue to embolden our local fire departments and other social and safety workers to ensure that we remain bolstered in our ability to maintain ourselves in the case of natural disasters and things of that nature. And I'd also like to try to redirect some funding we currently have potentially tied up in legal battles to environmental hazard preparedness as well when it comes to our regarding our oil infrastructure, regarding our fires, things of that nature. I'm also an advocate for maintaining the Los Padres forest. There's been issues off and on with individuals attempting to clear part of it with the justification of preventing fires. My personal speculation is it has a little bit to do with PG&E trying to cover up their behinds. But I'd like to, preserve our wilderness and make sure we have investments in environmental hazard preparedness pertaining to oil and other issues, and continue to maintain and improve our infrastructure in Montecito, preventing mudslides and things of that nature. Thank you.
Ms. Capps, same question, please.
Thank you. I think we're doing an incredible job of disaster preparedness, and I have a lot of wonderful endorsements in this race. One of the first, and one that I'm most proud of, is from the Santa Barbara Firefighters Association. Firefighters are an incredible asset to our community. You know that 90% of what they do has nothing to do with fires. It's one of the key things I learned as a supervisor on day 3, I think. They help people in times of need. They're there. That's government. That's taxpayer money. It's just a beautiful part of the system that we live in and the fabric of our lives. They're there when you need them. If it's a heart attack, if it's a kid who's fallen, they're there. They're in Isla Vista all the time, the area that I'm so proud to represent, helping those students. So yeah, they need support. And we've done an incredible thing in the last several years that I've been proud to champion. It's unnoticed, but when you call 911, it's faster now, because the county is invested in a streamlined 911 system so that all the cities are now together in one system, so that the closest vehicle gets to you. And seconds count in a time of disaster. So I'm really proud of the investments that Santa Barbara has made, because we have to. Guess what? We are #1 in the state of FEMA in wildfire risk, and we are #2 in the entire nation. So we have to put as much resources as we can into our fire department, into our emergency response. And I've been right there every time I can vote in support of doing so. Absolutely.
Thank you. 4th question. And again, we would start with Ms. Capps.
Great.
What is your view of the long-term financial health of county government? What do you propose to reduce costs, maintain infrastructure, and provide adequate services?
Thank you. This is another area I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak about. And again, I'm glad that you're running so that I do have the opportunity to speak with voters and with the public about this, because the county's fiscal health, it's in a challenging spot right now. And people are worried, and we have a lot to be worried about. But we're also in a better shape than we could have otherwise been, because we've been preparing for this storm. We didn't know it'd be quite so bad. We didn't know that H.R. 1, the so-called big horrible bill, would be so drastic on counties. So much money, 65% increase on the Department of Homeland Security at the expense of our social safety net, has had a real impact on our county. And that has come through the state down to our budgets. And so what does that mean in real numbers? Our county budget is $1.7 billion. This fiscal year, we need to trim $70 million. But we've been preparing for that. We are not running a deficit. Many jurisdictions around the state are running deficits right now. We have a reserve because we've been planning, fiscal planning, and I'm very proud of that. I am very much a fiscal steward. I understand that the key part of my job is I am spending your money. I am very careful, always asking the tough questions, making sure that we are getting the biggest bang for the buck, making sure that we are leveraging. For example, we just got a grant. I'm such an advocate of sustainability, but most of that work is leveraged from state and federal and other dollars. For example, $15 million from Southern California Edison to put in a microgrid in Isla Vista that will help protect the Sheriff's Department out there and the Isla Vista Community Service District in a time of emergency. Those kind of leveraging dollars, that's what we need going forward in these very tenuous times budget-wise.
Thank you. Mr. Mack, same question.
Thank you. So, oh yes, absolutely, my apologies. So I'm happy that our county's been able to shirk off some of its expenses utilizing various grants from the state level and things of that nature. But my view is that we shouldn't be dependent on these grants. So I don't know if everyone here knows, but The county has needed so far $8.5 million just in Caltrans grants alone to construct a 0.7 mile bike path on MoDOC. And there is no maintenance budget as well, so I better hope the cyclists come by and remove the palm fronds themselves and bring a little tar roller to fill up the cracks. And so we really need to try to negotiate harder with some of the contractors we utilize. We need to try to develop a more competitive market for the contractors we utilize. And I'd like to see us reach out to local volunteer groups and beautification organizations to see if some of them may be interested in some cases. And we should do this regularly for every single development or public infrastructure fixture like this, to see if they'd be interested in pitching in their volunteer time or their funds or anything of that nature. Now, I'm a member of the Odd Fellows, which is a very old fraternal order and mutual aid society. And I've been up and down the West Coast, and I've seen towns where organizations like the Odd Fellows have funded major public developments, parks, sometimes even golf courses, food banks, things of that nature. And I'd like the county to cooperate on a deeper level with such organizations to see if we can try to, it's not just a budget issue, but it's also a community togetherness issue. I'd love to see these sorts of organizations have a comeback in the United States. And I could go on a whole rant about how I love these traditional mutual aid societies and whatnot. But that's my 2 cents on the issue.
Thank you. Question number 5, and we begin with Mr. Mack. The Board of Supervisors acts for the whole county and has fiduciary duties regarding public funds. Each supervisor also represents the people of their specific district. How will you balance these interests?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are various issues where county actions and county policies regard the interest of the public at large. These can be common sense issues or issues of pertaining to infrastructure legislation where we have to make a hard decision and we have to go for what simply is the best for the most people in our county. But still, the great thing about the federal system in the United States is that each neighborhood and each community, each district for a legislative position should be able to communicate with its respective legislator and express their particular interests and concerns. So I've been going around and I've been talking to over 25 local business people, developers, things of that nature to gather their input. I've been talking to local farmers at the farmers market as well. And if elected, I'd like to pass a bundle of legislation that comes from their own concerns and their own inputs to try to really empower localized agriculture, regenerative agriculture, organic agriculture in this county, and make this area a hub for that sort of thing. And so that's sort of my approach with legislation is I want to rely on the general public as much as I can and hear their concerns and the issues that they face them via the county government, hear about their concerns about overbearing taxes, expenses, fees, regulations, or where we might legitimately need more regulation, and then base my legislation off of their decisions. I would even like to run polls for my district to determine my vote on highly contentious issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, same question.
Yeah, it's a good question. We have a really cohesive Board of Supervisors right now, and it does stand out in today's time of divisiveness. Even across the country, you see local governments that are, you know, people throwing things in meetings and all that. And I'm very proud that as strong as I represent my community in my district, I know that I have strong partnerships on that Board of Supervisors. And we all come from different perspectives, different ideologies even, different backgrounds, different locations. But, you know, all 5 of us really do support one another, and we really represent the entire county, and we have that strong sense. Just one example, I work very closely with Supervisor Bob Nelson on many projects. He is perhaps, if you had to look at this in ideological lines, the most conservative, and yet we've partnered on things together like permitting reform, cutting red tape. We've partnered together on cannabis reform. We come together on county-wide issues time and time again in this we think alike a lot on things that aren't partisan necessarily as they not should be, because we're really serving the entire county. And I'm proud of the way that our county Board of Supervisors conducts itself. We really do deliberate, and I learn a lot from other perspectives. I do come in with an open mind to a lot of issues, and while I am fiercely representing my district, and I want the others to support my projects like they have so many times in Isla Vista, which has just been calling out for support, especially bluff safety, tenant protections, and they have come every time and supported it unanimously. I'll be there for them as well, because I understand how much we all care about this county.
Thank you. Question number 6. And we will start with Ms. Capps. Are you concerned that there may be attempts to interfere with the 2026 elections or attempts to intimidate local election officials? Do you believe that any additional steps are necessary on the part of the county?
Well, thanks for asking that question. I'll try to answer it in 2 minutes. I have a lot to say about this. I've been really leading the charge on voter protection. I have been strongly supportive of our immigrant community in this time of inhumane federal immigration enforcement, and along comes threats of nationalization from our White House. We have people that are intimidated, U.S. citizens and otherwise, intimidated to go to the grocery store, intimidated to go to church, intimidated to go about their daily lives. And so I have heard directly that, yes, they are intimidated to go to the polls. We also know that with certain cases that are being challenged, folks aren't sure that their vote will be counted if they vote by mail. And so we have been doing a lot on the county in the recent weeks to make sure that people know that our county and our county alone runs our election. It's not run by the federal government. Our ballots won't be seized. We have put some protections and some language into policy to make sure that that's the case. And right now, we are doing all that we can to support our elections division, which does a good job. We have not had fraud. We have a very fair and balanced election, but we need to be doing more to make sure that this community does vote, because our democracy does hang in the balance, and we can't take these kind of things for granted. We can't let people who have been fearful for a long time, for whatever reason, stay home. And we know that if people are confused, confusion leads to voter suppression, and that is a form of intimidation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mack, same question.
Yes. So I don't have anything immediately that comes off the top of my head to really criticize our elections department on, but I will tell you that I am a big elections nerd, and I have been for as long as I can remember. And I'm also a major advocate for election transparency. I'm a big nerd about alternative forms of voting and electoralism. And I'd absolutely love to be in there in the county and ensure that we have fair elections and find areas where if we need to improve things, we need to improve things. And I'm going to be all there for it. Now, when it comes to individuals who are not coming out to vote or not coming out to community events because they're in fear of some of these federal agencies that are out there, including ICE, I would like to I personally have a plan for dealing with that I believe is more effective than the county's current plan that's been proposed or the county's current actions. And I'd like to save that for if there's any particular questions coming forward about ICE directly or anything of that nature. Oh, yeah.
I can't answer that. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll assume there will be, and if not, I will put it in my closing statement at the end for the sake of conciseness. Thank you.
Okay. Question 7, we will begin with Mr. Mack. The Isla Vista Community Services District recently approved a study of the feasibility of cityhood for Isla Vista. Do you support this? What issues do you see? And would you consider a city that includes Goleta, Nolita, and Isla Vista?
That's a very good question. So Isla Vista has its own very unique issues relative to Goleta and relative to Nolita. And I'm not inherently opposed by any means to the idea of Goleta becoming a city. Isla Vista becoming a city. And I would love to be in there in the Board of Supervisors to observe that process and make sure everything goes, as it should be in that process. Now, I'm not going to come out and fully endorse the notion, but I will tell you it's something I'm absolutely open to. And if elected, I'd love to engage with the board and do my due diligence in pursuing this sort of thing. And this applies to both Isla Vista and to Nolita. Thank you.
Ms. Capps, same question.
I really enjoy my partnership with the Isla Vista Community Service District. We have a very strong partnership, and I am supporting their efforts in exploring this, and I definitely have an open mind as they're exploring cityhood.
Thank you. Very short answer. Great.
Yeah.
All right. The next question, we will again begin with Ms. Capps, and it is question number 8. How will you approach providing housing and services for the homeless and expanded services for substance abusers while meeting existing demands for behavioral wellness services?
Yeah, it's a big focus of the county, and we've made a lot of progress to move many people off of the streets, many people out of encampments into sheltered housing. We've learned a lot. We've studied from other jurisdictions. One project in particular I'm very proud of and personally engaged in is Dignity Move. Some people have heard of this, where we take, again, underutilized county land, parking lots, and provide interim housing shelters. So the county puts up the land, philanthropy donors raise money for the trailers for these temporary buildings, and nonprofits provide wraparound, very intensive services that can help people directly out of encampments or off the street, get the mental health, get the drug counseling, whatever they might need. And it's proven to be very successful. The first project was in downtown Santa Barbara. The second project, which I really helped bring to life, is on Hollister, La Posada, and it's proving to be very, very successful to get people off the streets into housing. We, again, leveraging a lot of state dollars, we are building more housing for those with severe mental illness who otherwise would be on the street, contributing and being, just really living desperate lives. And so we need to be doing more of that. And it is a very expensive proposition. And the more that we can access Prop 1 funding from the state, the better off our county is. And we've been quite successful in that lately.
Thank you. Mr. Mack, same question.
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to spend maybe the first 10 seconds of this question here just adding on to my previous response in regards to the Isla Vista issue, if that's permissible. Absolutely. Thank you. And so my philosophy is that of the principle of subsidiary, which is a fancy political term. But that means that I like to decentralize political power and bring it as close to individual families, entrepreneurs, and individuals in their localities whenever possible. I like to minimize the layers of government that are placed upon individuals. And so my natural inclination is to favor that sort of political decentralization unless other evidence leads me to believe that it's financially, structurally, infrastructurally not viable or something of that nature. Secondly, on the issue just brought up, overall, my sentiments on this issue are similar to Laura Capps. I believe that for too long, the only solutions provided to homelessness and drug abuse and things of this nature are either imprisonment or otherwise leaving these individuals on the street as a risk to themselves and to individuals around them. I like to approach this issue less as a public crime issue and more of a public health issue. And I'd like to see us, and this involves a lot of cooperation with the state level, but cooperate to try and find means of humanely and empathetically and efficiently trying to bring these people help them out of their addictions and treat it not as more of a public health issue and not as a criminal issue. That's my overall philosophy. And I believe even though the initial expenses may be high for some of these proposals, in the long term, we do stand to make certain gains financially when we consider the fact that when we're increasing the recovery rate for these individuals, we're going to see less recidivism and we're going to see less time and energy spent cycling them through the prison system, which I take moral and quite simply objective political and economic issue with. Thank you.
Thank you. For question 9, we'll begin with Mr. Mack. Do you agree with the President's policy of increasing production of fossil fuels, including off the Central Coast? Or do you have a plan for phasing out the use of fossil fuels? What should replace oil production as an economic driver in the county?
Yeah. So in the long term and in the grand scheme of things, I'd like to see us eventually and more naturally transition away from oil. And I'd like to preface this as well by saying that I'm an environmentalist. I'm an advocate for regenerative agriculture, traditional preservationism. I'm an advocate for creating sustainable, localized economies. John Muir is a personal hero of mine, and so are the transcendentalists. It goes deep for me personally. But I believe that the question here kind of presents a false dichotomy. I believe that the sane approach for our county, given the fact that we currently have over $100 million in the balance indirectly from policies where we've tried to regulate oil production and other facilities and actions on federal waters, that it's the best way of going about this is trying to approach the issue realistically. And it's just a matter of fact that oil demand is going to remain consistent throughout the United States. And when we start offshoring effectively oil production to other counties, other cities, other states, or perhaps even other countries indirectly by shutting off production here, we're only offshoring oil production to areas that have poorer environmental, safety, or labor regulations than Santa Barbara County in particular. And I have some fast facts I'd like to present on the recent developments here in Santa Barbara County when it comes to oil infrastructure. So one of the points I'd like to mention to everybody is that the oil rigs seen from downtown are slated to be decommissioned. The reason it's taking so long is because the state government has to do its due diligence and be careful in deconstructing these offshore oil rigs. The new owners of our county's pipeline have installed 27 safety valves to halt spills, where the previous owner had less than 5 operating at any given time. The pipeline's new state-of-the-art control room in Santa Maria oversees and gives its full attention to one single pipeline, whereas most control rooms across our country oversee a great number of different pipelines simultaneously. And Sable, the current owners, run 10 times the number of inspections for a 5-year period, and they shut down the pipeline to repair. And thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, same question.
Yeah, thank you. We need to be moving rapidly, and we are, towards a renewable future and moving away from fossil fuels. It's devastating our environment, but it's also devastating us economically. And it's just more and more, it's a less fruitful proposition. We did have a very strong oil industry here. Certainly when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was a big part of our economy, but it really isn't anymore. Yeah, we still sort of have that perception that it is, yet in fact it's less than 0.1% of our jobs. It brings in less than 1% of our tax revenue. So it's to phase it out is actually much more fiscally responsible because of the health impacts for all of these 1,000 wells onshore. If you live within 2 miles, studies have been done that you're going to have health impacts that obviously cost the person their health, but also society. So we really need to be accelerating that transition. And the market is moving that way anyway. We've seen EV markets just skyrocket in the last several decades. And so I'm proud that Santa Barbara is moving rapidly in this direction. The county, like I said earlier, is doubling our solar on buildings, saving taxpayers $60 million. It was something I was proud to do at Santa Barbara Unified and lead us to solarize those buildings, because it's not only smart from an environmental standpoint, but it really is smart from a fiscal standpoint. I was president of the Community Environmental Council, so all of this just makes sense for our community. And guess what? It's happening anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with Ms. Capps. This is question 10. Do you support any changes in the Board of Supervisors' oversight of the sheriff's custody and jail operations?
Do I support the oversight?
No. Do you support any changes in the Board of Supervisors' oversight of the sheriff's custody and jail operations?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We're certainly making some strides and providing some more oversight. I do get this question out and about at the grocery store a lot. People don't kind of understand the difference, and I just will say it here. The sheriff is independently elected, yet the Board of Supervisors does provide the budget. So it's this interesting tension and interesting dynamic. And so we are trying to provide more oversight, but it's not, it's challenging. And it has been a challenging thing that I've been working on. And I'm not afraid to push in a respectful, professional manner with the sheriff to provide more oversight, because we've seen $4 million of overruns in overtime, $21 million overtime budget last year. He's on track to spend $9 million over budget on overtime this year, and we have a budget that is that means taking from other departments. So it has been challenging, and we've been putting things in place like monthly overtime reports, trying to have more fiscal oversight over that department, because again, the Sheriff's Department, incredibly important for our public safety. I am so supportive of the work that our deputies do every day. They keep us all safe. They do an incredible job. I work really closely with them, particularly in Isla Vista. And it is a big part of our budget, $223 million. It's the biggest department. And we have to have it run more fiscally sound so that we save money for the other priorities that we have.
Thank you. Mr. Mack, same question.
Yes, thank you. So while I do sympathize with the issue of undue expenses coming from the current way our sheriff's department is organized in relation to the county and the need for some sort of cooperation or oversight or something in relationship with the county and the sheriff's office, I tend to, for a variety of reasons, lean towards maintaining the status quo, if you will, on this particular issue. But this is one issue where I'd love to get input from my constituents. I actually have had and sought out conversations with individuals in my district, and many of them are quite split on this subject, so I believe I'd like to pursue a pragmatic solution with them, and I believe that would be my position.
Thank you. The next question, we will begin with Mr. Mack. Actually, I'm skipping the next question, question 11, because it has to do with housing,
Okay.
and both of you addressed that rather thoroughly in
Yeah.
your opening statements
good.
and your statements about the priorities for the county. So we'll go on to question 12. What changes, if any, do you support in the county's system of regulating and taxing the cultivation, preparation, and sales of cannabis?
Yeah, so quite simply, I'd like to see more necessary regulation in place in terms of the odor issue. But overall, my view on regulation, fees, and taxes, placed on the local businesses of any kind in the county, are that while there is a certain degree to where we need to tactfully and respectfully try to bring in county income from businesses, overall, I'd like to look across our economy for areas where we can diminish the burden of taxes, fees, regulations on businesses. That applies to the cannabis industry as well, but of course, the issue of odor and certain infrastructural issues apply it's not just an issue of individuals, doing their thing with their property. It affects individuals and their property and surrounding areas. It regards county infrastructure. So there is legitimate areas where the county can press on that issue. But overall, the main point I'd like to get across is I believe in reducing the burdens of the regulatory state and taxation wherever possible for all businesses in the county across the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, same question.
Thank you. Well, we've shifted things a lot since I've been on the board when it's come to cannabis policy, and I really tried to move quickly. I've been on the board just 3 years and accomplished, I believe, a lot to shift us from really being a county that was paying a lot of attention to an industry and one that was really paying more attention to the neighbors that were impacted by cannabis and that were really suffering from the odor impacts. And by and large, their complaints were falling on deaf ears. And so we did put a lot of new policies in place, better odor control, making sure that they were paying their taxes. At the time that I joined the board, over 60% of cannabis operators were paying zero taxes. We all pay taxes, right? They were not paying taxes. And so right away, I came in, and when I had the votes, I passed a crackdown on basically that they had to pay taxes. And so, and more oversight. So I'm not afraid. I've been got in there pretty quickly for a new supervisor and made some real changes that have impacted that industry while working with them. Certainly those that are playing by the rules and doing the right thing, we support them. And the market has had a lot of changes already. And yet the people, particularly in Carpinteria, their voices need to be heard, because I believe fundamentally that government is here to serve people, not special interests, and not those that have influence and can and I'm just always kind of looking for the most vulnerable and those that don't necessarily have a stake in the game, and so that's what I'm proud that I was able to do. But we have to stay vigilant on that front and make sure that again we may make those rules stick.
Thank you. The final question from our question bank, we will start with Ms. Capps. What is your message to young people and others who may think that voting and participating in the democratic process is meaningless?
Yeah, well, I really am proud in District 2 that I have both City College and UCSB. So my colleague Eleanor and I were out on campuses a lot, and it's a special part of my job, particularly since my dad was a professor at UCSB. I feel connected to him whenever I'm there, but it's hard. It's hard, especially many of them feel very demoralized by what's happening in Washington, D.C. And I hope they vote this year. I hope that they still feel as though this matters. And that's in part why I'm doing a real campaign to make sure that they understand that these local issues matter to them, that what happens in Isla Vista matters to them and matters to their future. And, I'm glad that you're running. I think that your candidacy shows that someone who is of the younger side can get involved and not just, talk about issues and complain about issues, but actually try to do something. And I do think that the more that people see that local government is actually changing things, I hope that that restores some faith. I have a lot of nieces and nephews who are in their 20s, and I tell them, we're going to get through this, and just keep the faith, because someday things will be different in Washington. It does turn over a lot, and we have to keep the faith and stay engaged. I work really hard to try to communicate to younger voters, to younger constituents, because the more that they understand that government isn't sort of this far off thing in Washington, Epstein files, bad headlines. It's actually things of, when you do call 911 and that fireman comes to your door, that's government, and that's inspiring.
Thank you. Mr. Mack, same question.
Yes, so one of the things I like to tell people is that the fraction of the population that so often complains about the outcomes of electoral races is often the same amount of people who could have flipped an election one way or the other. So it's essentially the fact that we believe we have no power to change anything that leads us to not have power to change, in effect. And so back when I was really active in third parties, I used to say, in some elections, the people who don't vote would be enough to get a pragmatic, independent, or third-party candidate in there in these races to actually make change. And so it really matters, especially on local issues, and especially in down ballot and low turnout and low info races, to really encourage people to get to know local issues, get to know state issues, formulate their personal opinions on it, and try to vote. And my main message in one of the main messages of my campaign is I like to try to encourage people to really do research on every candidate on their ballot and try to vote based on policy and not on party. I work with an organization called Braver Angels, who tries to facilitate interpartisan dialogue with people across the aisle in the United States. They host things like dinners with people on each side of the table being from different parties, and they try to find some common ground, find some common humanity. And I believe that if we get people really thinking about politics and local and national issues for what they are, and not just sticking so hard to these party labels and things of that nature, and going out and really studying and focusing on each candidate and finding their own particular position and voting, we can make positive changes in our national culture and our electoral system very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. You are an audience that really likes to write questions. We have a lot. We tried to consolidate. We picked ones that we think cover a variety of different issues, and we're going to try to get through 5 of them, maybe 6, and then have our closing statements. So I would ask the candidates if you can be as brief as possible. That means we can get through more of these questions. All right. If your question didn't get answered, I apologize, but with that many, there is no way we were going to get through all of them. So we did exercise our right to consolidate, edit, and choose. Okay. First question, let's see. Let's start with Mr. Mack. I heard the term radical support for local business. What initiatives do each of you support to foster local businesses?
Yeah, so absolutely, there's 2 aspects to it. First of all, there's an aspect of confronting the stated regulatory and tax-related issues that business people in this area have stated that they face. And I have a record of some of the statements from the 25 business people I've spoken to, and I can mention that to anyone after because it's a little bit long if you'd like to talk to me about that. So the first half is facing the regulatory state, and the second half is trying to, like I talked about when I was talking about classical urbanism and having this variety in housing and integrating small business space into housing in a way that's naturally and organically suitable for small business. That's the other issue. We have to have infrastructure that makes room for small business, and we have to make it as easy as possible to open and operate a small business with as little taxes, fees, and regulatory oversight as possible so that we can really help people get their foot in the door and cover all this. And when it comes to the infrastructural and social urban planning aspect, some of the issues we see across the country in terms of areas having a small amount of small business and stuff is because our communities have often been in the post-war period developed to be hyper efficient and centered on, you know the deal with those infinite tract homes, and every 15 miles you might have an intersection with some strip malls and a Walmart. There's no business business space in that area. And so making sure that our housing developments and our neighborhood developments from this point on, where they occur, are more human and more organic and more walkable and more traditionally aesthetic, and have a multiplicity of housing types, but also include small business space, is absolutely necessary to try to really create a empowered, more self-sufficient local economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, the same question, please.
Yes, I would give 3 answers to that. Number 1 is the pipeline of workforce. So because of my connections with our schools, I've really connected many businesses like Google AI here in Goleta with our schools, because they are looking for the next set of talent. And they tell me they have enough PhDs, but they need people right out of college, right out of City College, who want to stay here to know that they can actually work in these jobs here, and making those strong connections with Santa Barbara Unified, with other high schools here, and Santa Barbara City College. So that's number 1, is pipeline. Number 2 is housing. Again, when I ask businesses, what's your number 1 challenge? They say, we can't keep people here. We hire them, we offer them a job. They look at the housing market, they can't stay. So we're working with them through the South Coast Chamber of Commerce with the housing consortium, so that employers band together to go into leases in these new projects that are coming to Goleta to provide housing. And the third, the county does need to do more when it comes to economic development and establish more of a pipeline. So I'm supportive of Supervisor Roy Lee's film commissioner idea to make permitting more streamlined for businesses when it comes to filming here in Santa Barbara County.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Ms. Capps. And this is the question as written. Asking on behalf of the Santa Barbara Gray Panthers, we're very concerned about illegal actions of ICE in Santa Barbara. We've met with the chief of police, who seems to have her hands tied. The sheriff seems non-supportive. What can the Board of Supervisors do to help?
Thank you to the Gray Panthers for your advocacy. I have really worked with my colleagues to take a lead. I do believe that we are not powerless when it comes to ICE, even though they've run roughshod over our Constitution, roughshod over our local laws, and put this community in fear. 10% of our community is undocumented. That means another a huge portion of our community are the loved ones of those who might be of mixed status. So it's a huge portion of our community that's been affected for the last 15 months under this administration, living in fear. So what can the county do? Well, we've done it, and we continue to look for solutions. We passed a 3-part policy that safeguarded our county land, because it's really important. 40% of people living in the county rely on county services. So they need to know that if they're going to a clinic, or if they're going to an establishment that's county, that they're not going to be confronted by ICE. And so we're making county buildings protected, and that already just passed. Number 2, the elections work I just spoke about. That passed unanimously to really up our game in safeguarding our elections and communicating with voters, and making sure that people understand that ICE is not legally allowed at our polling places. And number 3, we are exploring how to ban any future detention centers in our county. This is not a place where we want detention centers. So yes, we do feel powerless. We've been pushing the sheriff to be more transparent. I should say we do feel powerless, but we are not. And as local leaders, we have to respond. I was the first to lead the charge to pass a resolution right after Trump was elected in support of our immigrant population, and that was unanimously supported by my entire Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mack, same question.
Yeah, so there are many struggles that come up when it comes to the county trying to deal with ICE and immigration enforcement on county land or in the county itself, or trying to deal with neighborhood raids through perhaps, and I'm not saying the county is doing this, but perhaps through things like, trying to obstruct them directly or things of that nature. There's many issues that come up in that regard. And naturally, one of the main legal precedents you probably heard in any debate or any more in-depth debate about this issue is naturally you have Title 8 of the USC, Section 1373, making it clear that localities have their hands effectively tied when it comes to trying to obstruct the activity activities of federal immigration enforcement. What our county can do has to do with, having our sheriff's department not directly cooperate with ICE. Now, here's my general philosophy for this issue, and I believe that I have a plan for trying to deal with the neighborhood raids issue. So my philosophy is, like I've said, I'm a localist, and as tacky as it sounds, Santa Barbara is my country, and anyone who lives an upright life, can live in our society, who lives in our communities, who's a beneficial neighbor, is a citizen of my community in my mind, regardless of whether they have had the opportunity to or have made the poor decision to not pursue American citizenship. And so naturally, though, there are going to be people who are documented or undocumented who don't fit that bill. And I believe that what I would like to see is an opportunity, and unfortunately this may not happen, but I'd like to see an opportunity to come to the table and try to ensure that ICE perhaps agrees to no longer engage in neighborhood raids if we strictly allow them to cooperate with attempting to apprehend individuals who are convicted violent felons who are undocumented, and allowing them to come into our area and deal with that. Of course, that comes down to state issues as well. There's a lot of burdens approaching that plan, but fundamentally, I'm very suspicious of the county's ability to try to just deal with the neighborhood raids and things of that nature directly. Thank you.
Okay. Next question will begin with Mr. Mack. What is the county doing to protect the existing housing on the Isla Vista Bluffs?
What are they doing to protect it, the existing county? Well, personally, I don't believe we're doing a whole lot to protect it. We could easily be trying to protect the bluffs for both, the housing reasons as well as ecological reasons. And personally, out in Isla Vista, there's the issue of the inspections policies out there. And of course, everyone's heard of the debate in this local area about, it's a privacy issue for the students. I think it goes a bit deeper than that. I've been out to Isla Vista several times in this campaign. I've talked to students, and their main concern is, a lot of these students have roommates or they know friends who have knowingly damaged their properties and are hiding it from landlords. And some of these individuals who are more savvy in local politics, and I've talked to a few college students who are, have this concern that if the county comes in and they find these issues through some means, whether it's the county selecting contractors or something like that, the expenses for these repairs are going to be enormous, and it's just going to get lopped on top of their rent. That's another major concern of the students out there. And I was speaking to an individual affiliated with a property out in Isla Vista who, due to county regulations, had to completely replace their roofing rather than deal with directly a smaller repair issue. And so I think we're actually both, we're having an affront here to both the students' privacy as well as we're potentially indirectly raising their rents, and we're not doing much to protect the properties out there. And that's my position on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, same question, please.
Well, the answer is we're doing all we can, but unfortunately it's not enough because of this combination of the bluffs that are eroding, the fact that so many people live there and so many people party there, hang out there, and the fact that landlords have houses that have not been kept up. And I just have to share two stories of just several months into being supervisor. I get a call on a Labor Day weekend and was informed by our firefighters that a young 19-year-old Santa Barbara City College student had fallen off the cliff. And that was my first experience with this tragedy. I know it's been part of Santa Barbara life. And it just is bewildering when I tell people that this is something that I deal with in my job. It just makes no sense that people are falling off cliffs when they go to UCSB or they go to Santa Barbara City College. It shouldn't be even a factor in college life. And so what I did was sort of channel that pain and that bewilderment into action, and I just started talking to everybody, the students, the families, the landlords, everybody, IVCSD, what can we do, what can we do? And we came up quickly, within weeks, with an 8-point plan, better lighting, higher fences, shrubbery, a memorial so that people see these names. And guess what? We passed it within weeks with support. We're putting funding behind it. We're working with the landlords. I wish all of them would actually just raise the fence heights, but we do have private property laws. I can't make them do it. We wish we could. When I'm out and about, again in the community, people say, "Why are those houses still there?" Well, it's private property. We can't. The county can't say, hey, you can't rent to 17 students in a 3-bedroom place. It's America. I support that law, that right, but it is extremely dangerous, and it breaks my heart. Every weekend, every Monday, I'm sort of relieved when there isn't another fatality.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Ms. Capps. In light of Roe v. Wade being overturned, simply put, what is your stance on abortion? And what role does the county play, if any, in preserving access to care?
Yeah, thank you. These are challenging times for those in our country, in our county, and those who are seeking abortion care and women's health care. I'm a strong proponent of abortion access, of health care. I've served on the board of Planned Parenthood. I've been a strong advocate, both in the school board of comprehensive sex education. It's not just something I do occasionally, but I'm a real ally. And in the county, the role is that making sure that we are standing up for Planned Parenthood when they have received a complete lack of federal funding and are trying to figure out how to make ends meet. We show up at their rallies, we give them support. I do as an individual, but also as my role in the community, because it's that important. It's, again, a very challenging time for Planned Parenthood, for those women who seeking this kind of services, for trans folks who seek this kind of health care from Planned Parenthood. And so as a supervisor, I'm proud to pass resolutions in support of abortion care, of women's health care in this time in our history.
Mr. Mack, same question.
Yes. So in the state of California, abortion access is written into our Constitution. And this is an issue that's not going to change when it comes to the security of abortion access unless somehow we have a supermajority of conservative pro-life Republicans in the state legislature. That's not going to happen. So this is one of those issues that is primarily outside of the county jurisdiction. And to put it quite simply, Capps legitimately is the individual with the most experience, supporting and working with Planned Parenthood here, and she's been in office working with them. So quite simply, if engagement with and support for Planned Parenthood through legislation and having that historic track record is a key thing for you in this race, unfortunately, I'm not your guy on this matter because it's, to be objective, it's not the highest line item on my vision for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Mr. Mack. Can the County Board of Supervisors do anything in regards to the increase in fentanyl deaths in recent years?
Yes, so indirectly the county can absolutely work with the school system and other organizations in our county to ensure that we have abundant access to Narcan within quick reach. We can push for education of students on this issue. I think we all know back in the day how the DARE program worked out. But at the very least, we have to be educating a lot of these students on the risks of fentanyl. And whenever they're buying any sort of substance, even if it's on a lower end, there are students out there who have died of fentanyl overdose after just trying to get their hands on Xanax or Adderall. To educate these students to, if you don't know where this is coming from, don't take it. And the county has been working during festivals like Deltopia to distribute things of this nature. But I think more can be done in engaging with the schools and educating students on this matter. This is something that I know indirectly. I know several people who have been affected by fentanyl. Luckily, I haven't experienced a death of anyone I know in this field, but I know it's a very real issue and it's getting out of hand. And in our county, from 2020 onward, fentanyl deaths tripled relatively rapidly, and they're still on the rise in the area as far as I'm aware. So there's a lot that we can do to improve how we confront this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, same issue, same question.
Actually, some good news, and I'll correct you. Fentanyl deaths, opioid overdoses have gone down 41% in the last few years, which is great. There was 98 deaths last year, and 2023, there was 158 deaths in our county. So we are making great strides. It's an area of focus of mine, given the fact that, again, I represent 2 colleges and a lot of young people. Although a lot of opioid overdoses are folks in their late 20s, 30s, so it doesn't always track with younger folks. And we do have Project Opioid as a multi-agency effort. And we have seen, again, it's a shining light. 41% reduction is really remarkable. This is, again, another area where I personalize things, perhaps as a mom or just the kind of compassionate person I am, but a couple months into being supervisor, my first Deltopia experience, not that I really experienced it, but I got a call that there was an opioid overdose of a student who had just experienced or had fun at too much fun at Deltopia, and again, he was 20 years old, and he passed away. And I, called his father up in Carmel, and again, trying to not feel as helpless as I feel, turn that into some sort of tangible action that we could try to do to prevent that. You never know what works, but we have done Narcan distributions every year right before Deltopia, and where we actually go to every single unit in Isla Vista, all 900 places, and hand out Narcan with about 50 volunteers, mostly students. It's a wonderful event. And so far, fingers crossed, no overdoses during that weekend so far. But again, you never know what works. We just have to keep trying. And it's really an all hands on deck when it comes to the county and these overdoses.
Thank you. That was our last question. From a timing standpoint, we need to move to the candidates' closing statements.
Okay.
You'll have 2 minutes each. We began the opening statements with Ms. Capps, I believe, so we'll begin our closing statements with Mr. Mack. 2 minutes.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, so as I've defined myself, I identify as a local in this race. I'm not running with the platform of a Democrat or a Republican. I'm here to focus on local issues first and foremost, develop policies that come directly from the voices and the words of our local citizens, our local business people, our local farmers, entrepreneurs, and families. I'm an advocate for helping locals afford to stay locals, developing more working and middle class housing, developing communities that are built around classical structures and principles that have room for local business, varieties of housing types for across the economic spectrum. I'm an advocate for preserving our traditional aesthetics, maintaining funding for a lot of our historic local festivities that have seen cuts or seen attacks. In this race, I view myself as the localist candidate who wants to bring things back away from, who wants to bring things back from way out issues, abstract political visions and partisan agendas, and bring things to the local level, dealing with issues for what they are, not through the lens of a rigid ideologue vision. I'm running as a pragmatist, and again, my policies in office and my positions will be dictated by you, because I believe my job as a supervisor, if elected, is purely to objectively represent my constituents. And of course, at the end of the day, on some votes, it comes down to my own knowledge, just in a pinch, my own experience and what I've had to engage with people. But that's what I believe the role of this office is. It's purely a transmissional office. It takes the needs of the public and transfers them objectively into policy. That's my vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Capps, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Again, thanks for everyone for being in here and hanging in there. It really means a lot that you care so much about your democracy, care so much about this election. And really, at the end of the day, this election, because it's local, it's about results and who can really work best with others, with partners, with the city council, with the Goleta School Board to deliver them effectively. And in less than one term, working with community partners, I've delivered tangible progress. Real affordable housing, it's in the works already. Real climate action already underway, historic action. Real investments in safety and infrastructure. I've stood up for our immigrant community time and time again, and I'll continue fighting hard for them. And if you know me, I'm sort of a person who's in a hurry. I work with urgency, and I'm just getting started. This is the community that raised me. My mom did so well with my dad, and this is where I'm raising my family. So I care deeply about getting this right, getting this job right, doing it well, and doing right by Santa Barbara County. This is where I'm going to be. This is the future that I want to forge. I look around when I drive up and down the county, which I do all the time, and I'm so proud of what we've done here. But I also know how hard it is for people to live here. It's just too expensive. Too many people live in poverty. 40% can't afford to live where they live far beyond their means. So we have a lot more work to do. And again, I'm just getting started, and I would be honored to earn your vote so that we can keep delivering real results. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to TV Santa Barbara for recording the forum. Thank you to Silvia Uribe of Transil-Pro for translation services, and to all the volunteers from the League of Women Voters who helped with this forum. Also, a big thank you to the candidates for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your commitment to serve your community. Thank you to the audience as well for joining us this evening. We hope that you found the forum informative and useful as you prepare to vote. Vote by mail ballots for the June 2nd primary election have already been mailed, so you should receive your ballot soon if you haven't already gotten it. The League of Women Voters recommends using the county's election ballot drop boxes to return your completed ballot. Due to changes in U.S. Postal Service policy, items mailed may not necessarily be postmarked the day they are dropped in a mailbox or turned in at a post office. Therefore, if you do choose to mail your ballot, please do so at least a week before the election to ensure that it is received in a timely manner. We recommend taking it into a post office and requesting that it be hand-stamped to be sure it is postmarked the day that you mail it. Ballots can also be dropped off at any polling place on Election Day, June 2nd. Locations of polling places and drop boxes are included with your ballot packet. If you wish to register to vote or to check that your registration is correct and up to date, the correct address, the correct party that you wish to be part of, please go to the California Secretary of State's website, sos.ca.gov, and you can also register online or re-register at that website. For more information about the election and the candidates for all offices, not just Second District Supervisor, please go to vote411.org, an informational website sponsored by the League of Women Voters to allow candidates to post their information and views on issues. Remember, the League neither supports nor opposes any candidate or party. Thank you and good night.